Hey everyone, Kevin here. Welcome to part 5 of our hymn playing instructional video course. This week we are going to be talking about how to play compound meter, like 6/8, 9/8, 12/8, anything basically with a multiple of 3 on the top, except for 3 itself. So I want to talk through meter, simple compound meter, and kind of the difference between them and how they work. So everything that we've done so far has been in what's called simple meter. Your simple meters, you've either usually you have a 2 or a 3 or a 4 on the top. You've got 4/4, which is the most common, 3/4, 2/4, 2/2, which would be cut time. Those will all be what's called simple meter. Everything just comes on the beat and everything is pretty normal. For instance, in 4/4 you have the 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and your subdivision is just eighth notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's how the beat is what we call subdivided. If you were to divide your beats up, it's going to fall into eighth notes and then into 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, but everything splits evenly into 2s and 4s and 8s and so on and so forth. That's how simple meter works. With compound meter, such as 6/8, instead of subdividing into 2, everything subdivides into 3. And it can be a bit deceptive because you see the 6 on top of 6/8 and you think, okay, it has 6 beats. And that's true, but you don't really usually feel it in 6. Usually you feel 2 main pulses, if that makes sense. So in 6/8, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You notice how on 1 and 4 there's kind of that accent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where I'm clapping there, we call those pulses because it's not technically a beat. There are 6 beats. It's not like there's 2 beats in the measure. There's 6, but there's 2 main pulses, 2 beats that get the emphasis. And those beats can be split up into groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let me show you an example from the hymnal itself. So I've got some that I've found here for compound meter to show you what I mean. So the Great Physician is in 6/8 here in the hymnal. So you've got your time signature over here, the 6/8 time signature. But as we sing through this, you'll notice that there's those 2 main pulses are we get the beats. So technically there's 6 beats. The Great Physician now is near. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you count every beat, you do have 6/8, but you're probably going to feel it and sing it feeling or clapping or tapping on those 2 main beats. The Great Physician now is near. 1, 2, 1, 2. You feel how there's those 2 pulses, those strong pulses in every measure. Okay, so what happens with compound meter, with all of your compound meter is, remember we said with simple meter, everything splits into 2. Your quarter notes split into 2 eighth notes. Your eighth notes split into 2 16th notes. 16th notes split into 2 32nds, which you hardly ever see, if at all, in the hymnal. But everything subdivides neatly into 2. In compound meter, those main pulses where I was tapping or clapping, those subdivide into 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dun 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 dun. You notice that I'm counting 3 syllables for every clap or every tap there. That's because you feel everything subdivided in 3. That's the big difference between simple meter and compound meter. So with 9/8, for instance, you have 3 groups of 3. So 6/8 is 2 pulses. 9/8 is 3 pulses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So an example of a 9/8 song from the hymnal, you come across 9/8 every now and then, would be Blessed Redeemer. So we've got the 9/8 time signature here up at the front. So Up Calvary's mountain, one dreadful morn. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We have that. So again, if you wanted to count every eighth note beat, you could. Up Calvary's mountain, one dreadful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But again, that's a bit, it can be a bit monotonous, so it's easier to just group it into those groups of 3, those main pulses, because those are the strong beats those are the strong beats that we feel. So, because of that, because of the subdivision into 3 instead of into 2, you might think that, well, then playing compound meter is going to be so different in our left hand from playing simple meter, 6/8. And a lot of times people wonder, what do I play in my left hand for 6/8? But actually, it's pretty simple. If you just treat instead of every counting your beats, what you look at is the pulses. And you're going to play every pulse. Instead of playing every beat, you'll play every pulse in your left hand. So, for instance, I'm going to go back to the first song that we looked at, The Great Physician. And I've got in my right hand, I'm just going to play the written right hand part for right now. We've talked about other right hand patterns to do, but since what we're looking at today is the left hand, I'm just going to do the written right hand part. So let me turn this over so you can see what I am doing here. Okay, all right. So we're in the key of E flat here, and we're in 6/8. So the written right hand part. So if I'm counting by 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, little monotonous. So if I count by pulses instead, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, or actually 1, 2, 1, 2. So I was getting into 4 here. That would be 12/8. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you hear how you have that strong beat. So what I do is I treat this just as if I were playing in 2/4, which is very similar to 4/4. I play an octave on that first pulse, and I play a chord on the second pulse. Octave, chord, octave, chord. And I do just like what I did for all my other meters. I follow the bass note with octaves, and I follow the chord. Whenever I'm playing the chord in the left hand, I look at what the 4 parts are to get my chord. So everything from the first several videos still applies. You have to be accurate to the chords. Always follow your bass note in octaves. So if you look at the hymn here, I've got, at the beginning, we start out on an E flat all the way through. So I'm going to play E flat octave. And then on beat 4, which is where my second pulse falls, great that second syllable of physician there, that second quarter note, that's where my second pulse is. That's where I'll be playing a chord. That's an E flat chord there. E flat G, B flat, E flat. So I'll be playing E flat octave, E flat chord. My bass note moves here on beat 6, so I'll run down and grab a B flat octave real quick before coming back up to the next E flat octave, because I have to play that bass note as an octave. Remember, we talked about that. Whenever your bass note changes, always play it as an octave. So E flat octave, E flat chord, B flat octave, E flat chord, E flat octave, E flat chord all the way across here. Pretty simple, mostly just E flat all the way through. So if I'm playing that again with my left hand, it'll sound like this. So nothing, it's the same octave chord pattern we've been using for everything else so far. Nothing really new. And that quick B flat there where I did that right there, that's just because my bass note moved down to that really quick B flat octave there, and I jump back up. And like I said, we always want to try to follow the bass note with an octave. I know that's a really quick one, but it helps to give that boost of playing the bass line. So again, this really isn't any different from anything we've already learned. Octave chord pattern in the left hand is the same. It's just instead of playing and thinking beats, you're now going to be thinking pulses. All right? So thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where I'm clapping there, that's where my left hand is going to be playing. Okay? All right, so that's 6/8. All right? What about 9/8? Well, 9/8, again, it's the same. It's just instead of 2 pulses, we've got 3 pulses. So it's actually going to be very similar to 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 snaps there for every measure. So if I'm playing in 9/8, let me go back to Blessed Redeemer that I was looking at a minute ago. So we're still actually in E flat. Here I've got 9/8 time signature. Got the pickup measure at the beginning, and then here, mountain 1. Those fall on the pulses there. So again, if I wanted to clap the 9 beats, it would be up Calvary's mountain, one dreadful morn. So that would be every single beat what I was clapping there. But if I just count the pulses, up Calvary's mountain, one dreadful morn, 1, 2, mountain 1. Those are the ones that are going to fall on the pulses. Again, the divisions of 3. So that's where I'm going to play. I'll play an octave just like in 3/4. I'll play an octave on the first one, and then I'll play chords on those other 2 pulses. Octave, chord, chord, octave, chord, chord. Just like I do for 3/4. Except instead of playing on the beats, I'm playing on the pulses now. Okay? So here's what that would sound like if I play that with my chording pattern. Good, and that little octave walk up I just did in the left hand is because you'll notice right here I've got this B flat, C, D, E flat, and again, as I mentioned to you earlier, always follow your octave with the left hand. Always follow your bass note with the left hand on octaves, even if it means playing where you wouldn't normally play. Okay? So that's the gist. That's the basic pattern for playing in compound meter, 6/8, 9/8. 12/8 similar. You don't see a whole lot of 12/8 hymns, but 12/8 would just be the same, basically similar to 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Every time I'm clapping, there would be a pulse. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pulses per measure. So you treat it just like 4/4. You play octaves on beat 1, octave on pulse 1, chord on pulse 2, octave on pulse 3, chord on pulse 4. So instead of beats 1 and 3, like in 4/4 timing, you're playing on pulses 1 and 3, which falls on 1, 7, if you're counting the actual 8th notes, 1 and 7, and the chords, the weak beats are going to be, or weak pulses are going to be 4 and 10. So, sorry, I had to do math in my head really quickly there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 1 there and 7 are the strong pulses. 4 and 10 are the weak pulses. Strong pulses octaves, weak pulses chords. So octave, chord, octave, chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There is an instance. I don't know if there's a 12/8 song in here, but there is a song that has a 12/8 chorus in it. It's actually a 9/8, but the chorus goes to 12/8, and that's My Redeemer. I want to find that here, because I can play that chorus and show you how this works. So here, this song is actually a 9/8, you see, but when we get down to the chorus, we go to 12/8. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer, and that goes, sing, oh sing of my Redeemer with his blood. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you see how that works. We have those 4 main pulses. So we treat it just like we did with 4/4. We play octave, chord on pulse, 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 pulse. So here's what that chorus would sound like if I did that. Let me turn this over where you can see it again. Here we go. Okay. Bass walk up there with his blood he purchased me, E flat, F, G, A flat. So I missed that first time. That's why I played it that way. Does that make sense? We're playing just like we did, the same octave chord pattern. We're just playing every pulse, every 3 small beats, if you want to call them that, in 6/8 or 12/8 or 9/8. Every 3 eighth notes comes a pulse, and we play on those. We do the octave first, then the chord, octave chord, octave chord. And then if it's 9/8, then we have octave chord, chord, octave chord, chord, because it's basically like 3/4. So if you want to actually think of it that way, 6/8 kind of is comparative to 2/4. 9/8 is comparative to 3/4. 12/8 is comparative to 4/4 as far as what pattern you'll play in the left hand. So if it helps to think of it that way, then that's fine. However it helps you to think of it, but just you'll be doing the same pattern. Now, occasionally, and actually not too uncommonly, you will come across a 6/8 song that is slower, and that if you try to play it that fast will sound a little weird. So in that instance, there is a different way that you can play. What I just told you about just playing on the pulses works most of the time, and you can make it work pretty much any time. But there will be a couple occasions where you're going to feel like that's a little too fast. So, for example, He Hideth My Soul is, you'll notice here, in 6/8. Okay, we're in the key of D, we're in 6/8. If I play on the pulses like I've been doing, here's what that would sound like. Okay, a bit quicker than how we usually sing He Hideth My Soul. I mean, maybe you're used to singing it that fast. I'm used to a little slower than that. So, if you were going to do the slower feel, instead of playing on the pulses, you just play on the actual eighth note beats. And then what's going to happen is, because those beats are grouped into groups of 3, wonderful Savior is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We already talked about 6/8, 9/8, all these compound meters, they're grouped into groups of 3. Those are the pulses that you feel. But instead of treating each pulse like a beat, I'm going to treat each pulse like its own measure and play this like it's in 3/4, if that makes sense. I'm going to play it like it's in 3. So now I actually am going to play on every single eighth note, and I'm just going to slow down my tempo. Here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm actually playing on every eighth note, but that sounds more like the tempo that I'm used to singing this song at, if that makes sense. And that feels a little more natural for this more reflective song than "A Wonderful Savior is." That's a little too quick than what we're used to. So if you come across what I would call a slow 6/8 or a slow compound meter song, you can just play it in that 3 pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, octave, chord, chord, octave, chord, chord. So what I'm doing there is I'm playing octave on 1, and then on beats 2, 3, I'm playing chord, and then octave on 4, and then chord on 5 and 6. So I'm actually playing every eighth note. Hopefully that makes sense there to hear how that works. So there are some songs that you can either play in that slow 3 pattern, or you can play in the quick pulse pattern that I showed you at the beginning. Some of them allow you, because there are some songs that are a bit subjective. Some people sing them fast, some people sing them slow, depending on what mood you want to create or what you're used to hearing. So an example of that might be, I found one here earlier. Heaven Came Down and Glory Filled My Soul. This is an upbeat song, so usually it's going to be played quickly. So normally you would just, because it's a faster upbeat tempo, you would usually use that pulse pattern, and you'd just play on beats 1 and 4. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful day. 1, 2, 1, 2. So that, again, that would sound like this if I was going to play that. notice I'm just playing twice every measure. It's that pulse pattern again. On the word O, and then the first syllable of wonderful, I'm playing the chord. Octave on O, chord on wonderful. So, oh, what a wonderful, wonderful day. That's how I would play that. But occasionally, with a song like this, it's not as much that I would play it in a slow 3, but I might use the 3 pattern and actually play on every 8th note if I wanted to give a little extra energy to this. Now, I will say, beware, this is a lot of hand movement in the left hand. So I wouldn't start out here, but if you get to the point where you're really, really comfortable with the left hand stride pattern, octave and chord, and you can make those adjustments pretty quick, then you might do something like this, and it almost kind of gives it a waltz type feel, kind of a bouncy feel. So this is what would sound like if I go to that 3 pattern, but I keep that upbeat tempo. Notice how it has kind of a bouncy waltz feel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're still up tempo. We're not slow, but we are doing that 3 feel. So again, that's just an option. That's not something you'll do necessarily very often, but I might occasionally do that if I want to give a little extra life to a song like this that is bouncy and upbeat, and I want to give it a little bit of extra bounce, a little bit of extra lift to it, then I'll do that. So you can play on every beat, no matter what the tempo is. It's just normally for fast tempo songs, you'll do what I was saying earlier, and you'll just play on the pulses. And if it's slow, you'll play every beat, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be one of those exceptions where sometimes I might choose to give it a little extra energy and drive by doing that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, octave, chord, chord, octave, chord, chord. It's, like I said, it's a lot of fast movement for the left hand, so it takes some practice to be able to do that. But again, it gives a lot of energy to a piece, so it can be a nice variety on a piece like this that feels like it needs a little bit more energy. One of those upbeat pieces. So there's multiple ways to play. Hopefully, what you've taken from this is there are actually multiple ways of playing compound meter, but those are basically the standards. I would say that pulse way of just playing every pulse instead of every 8th note is going to be probably the simplest way to get into playing compound meter, and it pretty much works no matter what. It's just there may be some occasions where if you're going slow enough, you might actually be able to play every 8th note like I was doing and just play it in 3, like I did for He Hideth My Soul. I hope that helps. I tried to make it as clear as I can. If you're still a little confused, there's probably a lot of resources out there as far as looking up online some more resources about what the difference between simple and compound meter is. But that's basically it. 6/8, 9/8, occasionally 12/8, but you won't see that on the hymnal very often. Your options are, especially if it's fast, to play every pulse and just do the octave chord pattern, or you can if it's slow enough, or if it's something that if you have the technique in the left hand and you want to do that fast waltz feel, you can play every 8th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a 3 pattern, octave chord, chord, octave chord, chord. Always, as I've been saying all along, always look at what your chords are when you're coming up to play those chords in the left hand. Always pay close attention to your parts. So that's one thing that I would say will get you, and I may not have even been super accurate there, when you're doing that fast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pattern, because those parts change so quickly, it can be a bit tricky because you're going to be probably changing your chords a lot. So for instance, here we have "Oh, what a wonderful." That chord there on the middle of "wonderful" is not a normal chord. F, B flat, C, and G. So technically, if I'm playing that in that fast pattern, I'm gonna want to change that chord. So what I just did there was, "Oh, what a wonder." I'm playing F, G, and B flat there because those are the notes in that chord. And then back to a regular F chord there. So you got to really be on your toes to catch things like that. Like I said, it's easy even for me to miss things like that when you're doing that fast pattern. The more chords you're playing, the more you've really got to watch and make sure that you're fitting them accurately. But as I've always stressed, be as accurate as possible to the hymnal. Anytime the bass note moves, play that in octaves, and this will give you a nice full sound in your left hand. So hopefully that helps you know how to play left hand with compound meter. Next week, I plan to talk about how to play introductions. That's maybe the one thing that's still kind of missing. You say, okay, I've got it, I've been working on it, I feel like I'm ready to play. You're still probably going to need to learn how to play the introduction, because you can't really just sit down and launch right into the first verse. Most of the time, the song leader expects you to play an introduction of some kind. How do I do that? Where do I start? What section do I play? How long do I play? How do I play? So we'll talk about that next week in part 6, how to play the introduction. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you're enjoying the series, please subscribe on YouTube, and Excellence in Church Music, and then also follow us on Facebook page, also Excellence in Church Music. Check out the website, eichurchmusic.wordpress.com. I've got a lot of my piano arrangements as well as some of original vocal music that I've composed on that website, and I just want to be a help to church musicians. So again, hopefully you're enjoying this series. I will see you all next time.